Chapter 91 Rice's Final Trump Card. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Wind. But soon Storm's clone used its own ability to blow away all the smoke with wind, and all mutant clones that could attack remotely used their own abilities to attack: Cyclops' laser, Magneto's control of iron, Phoenix's mind to move heavy objects, Fireman's flames, Iceman's freezing, etc. However, with George's physical fitness and reaction nerves, these attacks were basically easily dodged by him. While dodging, he kept shooting and killed several mutants, but this situation did not last long, because Professor X, Phoenix, and the White Queen's 3 clones joined forces to exert mind control on George at the same time. George himself has psychic abilities, and he also has the bonus of wizard blood, so he is not afraid of being really controlled by the 3 clones, but it is not without impact. At least he can no longer concentrate and dodge attacks flexibly like before. Armor protection. Seeing those attacks coming again, George stretched out his left hand and released the iron armor spell, and a magic energy shield appeared instantly, blocking all long-range attacks for him. The defensive strength of the armor spell is still very powerful. However, when he was about to shoot again, he found that his gun began to be out of control. It was obvious that the clone of Magneto gave up controlling the iron attack and started to compete with him for the magnetic control of the pistol. At this time, other melee mutant clones, such as Wolverine, Sabretooth, Colossus, and Psylocke, also rushed to the platform, intending to fight him in close combat. Capture him alive. Rice thought that the current experimental subject number 757 had no chance of winning, and immediately ordered those melee mutant clones. Originally, he wanted to kill the experimental subject number 757, and then study his body to see what happened, whether there were any other mutations, or injected with other genes, but now he found that the superpowers of the experimental subject number 757 were getting more and more, some of which were beyond his imagination, so he wanted to capture him alive first to see if he could torture him out of any information, and then conduct experimental research, if the mutants he created in the future were as powerful as the experimental subject number 757, he would rule the world faster. It's an eyesore. Looking at the naked mutant clones rushing towards him, George couldn't help but twitch his lips. The female clones were fine, but the male clones were swinging when they were running, which was really hard to hold. It felt that the damage caused by this mental shock had exceeded the mental control of Professor X and the other 2 below. While continuing to maintain the armor spell to block long-range attacks and manipulate magnetism to compete with Magneto for control of magnetism, he freed his right hand and took out the alloy mace from the pocket with the traceless extension spell. Change. As a magic circle appeared on George's body, his body expanded rapidly, and in the blink of an eye he turned into a giant nearly 4 meters tall. At this time, he was using the giant magic of President Makarov. Although he couldn't change to a height of several hundred meters like President Makarov, it was not difficult to get started with a height of 3 or 4 meters. The first one. George raised the mace in his hand and, like playing whack-a-mole, smashed the fastest Quicksilver clone to the ground. Bloody and dead, Quicksilver's clone was very fast, and only a faint afterimage could be seen when running, but it was still more than 1 level behind the original body. With the overall improvement of physical fitness, George successfully hit the opponent with the huge mace. The improvement of giant magic is an all-round improvement, not only in size, but also in strength, speed, defense and reaction nerves. In addition, his body is different from that of ordinary people. The wizard blood allows wizards to have the ability to resist and recover beyond ordinary people. The physical fitness of mutants is usually better than that of ordinary people. The nerve reaction speed and dynamic ability of magic cats are extraordinary. The superposition of the 3, and the amplification of giant magic, even in close combat, he is definitely a first-class existence. If there are more clones in the future, with the superposition of clones' physiques, this advantage will continue to be magnified. After killing the Quicksilver clone, George did not stop with the mace in his hand, and then swept away all the remaining people. He did not know any fighting skills, nor could he use all kinds of weapons well. His main strength and speed were his strength. He chose the mace because it was simple to use and had good lethality. If those mutant clones that were swept away by him were ordinary people, they would definitely die with just this one blow. However, even if these mutant clones have the ability to heal themselves, can be hardened and beast-like, they still cannot get up immediately because they are not as good as the original body. Even those like the Psylocke clones who focus on attack but are weak in defense were killed directly. At this time, George did not pursue the victory, but used the wing magic again, and wings grew on his back, and flew directly to the mutant clones that were still attacking from a distance, against the defense of the armor spell. He smashed them randomly when he landed. The first to bear the brunt was the clone of Magneto, who was competing with George for control of magnetism. Because the magnetism was suppressed by George and could not affect the alloy mace, his head was smashed into his stomach. Without the obstruction of the clone of Magneto, George regained control of magnetism, and several sharp blades immediately flew out of his sleeves and joined the killing. The mutants responsible for long-range attacks were rapidly reduced in number, and the power of long-range attacks was greatly reduced. He simply gave up the armor spell defense and launched an all-out attack. Magic, melee and superpowers, all three aspects were used together. Even those melee mutant clones who came back to support were suppressed by him in all directions. The whole body binding spell and the coma spell controlled the body, and the mace and blades killed him. Occasionally, there were weakened laser shots like Cyclops hitting him, but they were all blocked by the powerful defense after the giantization. Seeing that the mutant clones were getting fewer and fewer, less panicked. He ordered the mutant clones guarding him. "You go and help too." Then he quickly ran to the control room of the incubator, where his last trump card was, clone number 101. He only cloned one and planned to destroy it, but he didn't expect it to become his life-saving straw now. Seeing that Rice was about to escape, George used his mace to sweep away the Wolverine and Sabretooth clones, who had the ability to heal and were more difficult to deal with, and raised his hand to shoot a full-body binding spell at Rice. "Petrify all." The blue magic light shot out, but was blocked by a strange mutant clone. The key is that after blocking George's full-body binding spell, the mutant was not fixed, but rushed towards George with a grin. George subconsciously smashed the mace, but when the mace hit the mutant, it seemed to absorb all the kinetic energy at once and did not cause any damage. Instead, an equally strong force rebounded from the mace, making him almost lose the mace. The clone of Black Emperor Sebastian Shaw. George raised his eyebrows and immediately knew what was going on. Confuse the audience. The next second, the confusing spell was activated, and the eyes of the Black Emperor clone were confused and unable to activate their abilities. The sharp blade cut its throat and killed it on the spot. Chapter 92 Tracking the Black Widow. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. The Black King is definitely an extremely powerful mutant. Even if it is a clone, it cannot be compared to ordinary mutant clones. He has the ability to absorb various forms of energy, and can convert and release the absorbed energy into very powerful attacks, whether it is technological bombs, missiles, or even nuclear bombs, physical melee damage, or magic and energy attacks. He can absorb them all. But he is not without his weaknesses, which is being restrained by psychic abilities. It was in order to overcome this weakness that he built a helmet that could defend against mind control, and it later became Magneto's iconic helmet. Without this helmet, he would not be able to resist at all when facing Professor X, but if he had a helmet, there weren't many people in the world who could kill him. The Black King clone here does not have a helmet, and although George's psychic ability is not enough to immobilize the opponent, and he does not know the mind control black magic such as the Imperious Curse, he can confuse the spell. Confusion spells can make people feel trance-like and are also mind control magic. In fact, he felt that the absorption capacity of the Black Emperor clone was definitely far different from that of the real Black Emperor. As long as he smashed the mace a few more times, he probably wouldn't be able to withstand it all, but that would be a waste of time, and it would be easier without the confusion charm. Collapse. Another spell was fired at Rice, but this time it failed again because the younger version of Professor X's clone was in the way. Of course, the clone of Professor X was unable to absorb the power of magic and fainted. George, who originally wanted to kill him, suddenly thought of something, and with a thought, he grabbed the unconscious clone of Professor. If he remembered correctly, Professor X had the ability to transfer consciousness. After being killed by Phoenix Girl, his consciousness was transferred to his twin brother who was in a vegetative state. Logically speaking, this younger version of Professor X's clone should be able to transfer consciousness more easily than his twin brother, although after the transfer, due to physical limitations, he may never reach the level of a 4th level mutant. At least he has a young and healthy body and no longer needs to sit in a wheelchair. It can better help him manage the super schools that may exist in the future. Collapse. The 3rd time he cast his magic, another mutant clone stood in front of him. The controller inside the mutant clone body has the highest order set by Rice, which is to protect his safety, so when he is in danger, these mutant clones will go to him one after another to resist harm. Even if they die, they will not blink an eye. They are his most loyal subordinates. I didn't expect you to have so many abilities, but it's useless. Then you will become an ordinary person. I will study your body and create countless clones as powerful as you to conquer the world for me. Because the mutant clones were dying one after another, Rice finally came to the console of the nutrition cabin and pressed a button. George's power was something he never expected, which both frightened and excited him. You want me to become an ordinary person? How naive. George smashed the Phoenix female clone in front of him into meat patties, then cut off the Phoenix female clone's hair with a blade and put it in his pocket. The ready-made wand core material saves you from going back to research cloning, so you must not let it go. As for Rice's final trump card, he actually already had a guess in his mind. That trump card was very effective against other mutants, even the genuine Black King, Magneto, and Professor X, but it really had no effect on him. Sure enough, as Les pressed the button, a special nutrition cabin slowly rose in the middle of the hall. As the nutrition cabin opened, a bald little boy appeared in his eyes. With the appearance of the little boy, George felt his magnetic control and psychic abilities disappear at the same time. A clone of a mutant leech. The boy is none other than a mutant with the ability to suppress other mutants. He himself has no offensive power, but as long as he is around him, the abilities of all mutants will be suppressed, even 4th and 5th level mutants. He can be called the nemesis of mutants. Of course, it is also called the antidote for mutants. After all, not all mutants like the superpowers they have awakened. Experimental subject number 757, I admit that you are powerful, but now, you are just an ordinary person. Seeing a small group of guards rushing towards the entrance of the hall, Les felt like he was okay again. However, George directly threw the alloy mace at the newly appeared guards, killing most of them on the spot. If it worked for me, shouldn't I be back to my normal size by now? Damn it, I never use mutant superpowers, so naturally I won't be affected by them. George took out his alloy long sword and used a burst of magic output to freeze the remaining guards and mutant clones in place. Then he picked up the mace alloy stick and killed them all. He came to Les, who was collapsed on the ground in fear. Before experimental subject number 757, we can actually work together to conquer the world. You know nothing about this world. George interrupts the pie that Les painted, dispels the giant's magic, and puts the ring back on. Legilimency. Just with these mutant clones, do you still want to conquer the world? Let's not talk about others, let Iron Man study it. Maybe he can use Jarvis to invade your control system and control these mutant clones. Mrs. Natalie, this guy is not the Black Widow, right? After a moment, George, who had read Rice's memory, couldn't help but fall into deep thought. The Mrs. Natalie in Rice's memory made it hard for him not to think of the super spy Black Widow of S.H.I.E.L.D. It seems that S.H.I.E.L.D. has also noticed that Rice is studying mutant genes. We can't let Black Widow get the research data. George stood up and controlled the grenades on the guards' waists to explode together, directly blowing up the entire hall, and then rushed directly to the data room where Rice stored the research data. If that Mrs. Natalie is really the Black Widow, then she must have taken advantage of the chaos to steal the research data at this moment. Once the mutant clone technology falls into the hands of the Black Widow, it will also fall into the hands of S.H.I.E.L.D. and Hydra, which is not something that a mere Rice can compare to. Not here. Did you fail or did you succeed? At this moment, George was not in a hurry to find Mrs. Natalie. Instead, he backed up all the technical information of the Rice laboratory and destroyed the entire data room. After doing all this, he chanted the tracking spell. Footprints show. At this time, he was no longer thinking about Sandor Rice, but Natasha Romanoff, the real name of the Black Widow. A line of footprints appeared in front of him and spread out of the data room. Chapter 93 feels good. You are listening at novelfull.audio. On the rooftop of the base, the Black Widow, who had already changed into a black tight-fitting combat uniform, got on the helicopter parked on the rooftop and began to slowly take off. She has successfully obtained all the research materials, and now she is taking advantage of the chaos in the base to escape and bring these research materials back to S.H.I.E.L.D. Let Hawkeye lead the team to clean up later. That she got too much information here today, not only Rice's clone mutant weapons program, but also the rejuvenated Wolverine and a group of mutant children hiding in New York. However, just as she was operating the helicopter to take off, a figure with white wings on its back suddenly appeared in front of the helicopter. Flavie, George cast a transformation spell on the helicopter rotor bearing. Under the influence of the transformation spell, the mechanical bearing immediately turned into a large solid rock. The rotor immediately became stuck and stopped rotating, and the helicopter fell to the rooftop again. His transformation spell can't transform the entire helicopter, but it can still transform one of its parts. Precision machinery often only needs one part to render it incapable of working. He ran really fast. Before the helicopter completely crashed, Black Widow noticed something was wrong, jumped directly to the rooftop, and quickly escaped along the rooftop downwards. But for George, this didn't get rid of him. He accelerated and flew in front of the Black Widow and stopped her on the rooftop. Black Widow, the famous senior agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., please hand over those copied research materials. You are not from less, but a companion of Wolverine. Black Widow slightly raised the widow sting on her right hand. If you are a companion of Wolverine, then we are not enemies. Our goals are the same, and we all have the same plan to destroy Rice. From the constant explosions in the distance, it can be seen that the invasion of the base is not over yet. Rice is probably too busy to take care of herself. The chance of discovering that she copied the research data and sent someone to hunt her down is very small. The key is, even if she is really discovered, it is impossible to know her details so clearly, so the person in front of me with his wings spread out and using superpowers to crash the helicopter is most likely Wolverine's companion. Since our goals are the same, please hand over the research data. This technology of cloning mutants must be destroyed. Otherwise, even if Rice is eliminated this time, there will be others next time. George smiled and held out his hand. Black Widow shook her head. I can't decide this. My task is to bring these materials to the director and let him decide whether to destroy them, but please believe us at S.H.I.E.L.D., no matter what decision we make, the ultimate goal is to protect the world. If you don't believe it, you can go to S.H.I.E.L.D. with Wolverine. I believe the director will give you a satisfactory answer. It seems that you are unwilling to hand it over, so I have to do it myself. George was too lazy to talk nonsense and raised his hand to cast a coma spell. Collapse. However, Black Widow is not comparable to ordinary soldiers. She has rich combat experience and her body was modified during training in the Red Room. She is far superior to ordinary agents in all aspects. The moment she saw George raising his hand, she made a tactical dodge, dodged the magic light directed at her, and shot out the miniature electric shock device in the widow's stoma with a current of up to 30,000 volts. The response was quick, but it was useless. Seeing the Black Widow dodge her magic and launch a counterattack, George raised the corner of his mouth slightly, activated his superpower, and directly controlled the incoming micro-electric shock device to shoot back. There is metal in the micro-electric shock device, so it will inevitably be controlled by its magnetism. Black Widow didn't expect that the attack she fired would be bounced back. Her expression immediately changed, and she used her super flexibility to bend down to avoid the rebounded micro-electric shock device. Unfortunately, this micro-electric shock device is not just as simple as rebounding, but is completely controlled by George's ability. Just as the miniature electric shock device was about to fly past, it suddenly fell completely against the rules of physics and quickly landed on the Black Widow's chest. 30,000 volts of high voltage erupted from the micro-electric shock device, and Black Widow was immediately electrocuted and twitched on the ground. I told you to hand it over earlier but you didn't listen. Now you must be punished by the boss. George came to the Black Widow who was electrocuted and could not move for a while, smiled, shook his head, and began to fumble. Soon, he found a miniature USB flash drive in the inner hidden pocket of his tights under his chest. Good shape and good feel. With a smile and a joke, he crushed the USB drive to pieces in front of Black Widow, then he reached out and pointed at Black Widow, who was trying to restrain her body from twitching and trying to get up. Everything is forgotten, the memory is modified. Yes, he's going to amnesize and modify Black Widow just like he did Coulson. In fact, he knew that the forgetting curse and the memory modifying curse were not flawless. If it were an ordinary person, there might not be any problems, but agents have undergone strict training and have very careful thinking. As long as you go back and think about it carefully, you will find that many things do not match up, and you will have doubts about your own experiences and memories, but this is not important to George, as long as there are no problems in a short period of time. Even if Coulson and Black Widow use S.H.I.E.L.D.'s methods to restore their memories later, it won't have much impact on him, because after solving the problem of Les, he will enter a new round of seclusion to study and improve his magic power, and he will hardly go out. If S.H.I.E.L.D. wants to find him, there is only one clue: Tony Stark. Let alone whether Tony cares about Nick Fury or not. Even if Tony cares about him, Tony himself does not know where George and others are hiding in New York. He only knows that they are in New York. George did not tell Tony that they are hiding in the mutant school. Use the coma spell to knock Black Widow unconscious, and carry her to fly quickly to the battlefield where Tony and others are. Those mutant clones will not stop fighting because of Les' death, just like X-24 in the movie will not stop chasing Dusk Wolf because of Les' death. They have controllers in their bodies that can be controlled, but if the controller dies, they will continue to fight according to the previous orders until they die. So now Tony and Wolverine are still fighting a large number of mutant clones. George, come and help, I can't hold on any longer. As soon as George arrived at the battlefield, he heard Tony's loud cry for help. He looked at him with some surprise and said, "How could this happen?" He thought that with the strength of Tony and Wolverine, one close combat and the other long range, they should not be so embarrassed even if they couldn't beat those clones. Wolverine was suppressed and had no room to fight back, and Tony's battle suit on one arm had been destroyed, and the battle suit on his body was also in pieces. Obviously he was beaten badly. Chapter 94 Sigma George. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What's wrong with you? George threw Black Widow to the ground and raised his hand to cast several stun spells to knock down the mutant clones that besieged Tony. Tony is different from Wolverine. Wolverine is almost immortal and can't die even if he is suppressed, but Tony relies on the Iron Man suit. If the Iron Man suit is blown up, he will be an ordinary person and will really die. You have to ask Jacket Wolf. He can't do it to his former comrades, especially that woman. Tony panted and pointed at the Phoenix clones in front of him and complained. It turns out that when dealing with the Black Emperor, the White Queen and the Red Devil, even the Sabretooth and his own clones, Wolverine can go all out, but he can't do it to those X-Men clones, especially when facing the 9 Phoenix clones. Iron Man, don't call me Jacket Wolf. I can't do it to my former comrades, but you can't do it to all women. At this time, Wolverine also struggled to get rid of the Phoenix's entanglement and retreated to George and Tony. Tony reorganized his suit and replied as a matter of course. I like to fight them in bed, not beat them to a pulp here. That's too ungentlemanly. You deserve to be beaten like this. George rolled his eyes when he heard this. We can't waste any more time. With such a big commotion, the police will come soon. Repair it as before. He waved his hand and cast a repair spell to restore the broken steel suit to its original state. He ignored Tony, who almost doubted his life, and began to redistribute combat tasks. You are responsible for dealing with non-X-Men and male mutant clones, and leave the rest to me. In his eyes, there are only enemies and his own people, no distinction between men and women, and gentlemanly manners are something he only uses for his own people. As a Sigma man, even if the enemy is a woman, he will fight with all his strength to kill the other party to show respect. Transform. The giant magic was activated, and George turned into a giant of nearly 4 meters again. He picked up the mace and jumped to the group of Phoenix girls. A rotating windmill crushed most of the Phoenix girls, then the coma spell, the whole body binding spell, the confusion spell and other spells were frequently shot out, and the magnetic blades were controlled like a harvester, and began to quickly clean up the mutant clones. In just a few minutes, many female mutant clones such as Phoenix Girl, Storm Girl, Mystique, Phantom Cat and White Queen were all beaten to pieces by George. So perverted. Watching George's battle over there, Tony and Wolverine couldn't help but be stunned. On the one hand, they thought George was perverted for being so vicious to so many beauties, and on the other hand, they thought George's strength was even more perverted. Before, most of them only saw George's arc shooting and various tricks like magic. It was the first time for him to fight with all his strength like now. All the female mutant clones were killed by George. Without any scruples in their hearts, Tony and Logan also showed their true strength. Tony, whose battle suit was repaired, used a small tracking missile that could easily blow up a tank. The powerful explosion power made it impossible for the clones of the Black Emperor to fully absorb it, and they were directly blown to death on the spot. Logan did not defend at all and attacked with all his strength. No one could stop his sharp adamantium claws. After all, clones are clones. The strongest can only barely reach the threshold of level 3. If the number does not reach thousands or tens of thousands, it is really not a big threat. Is this beauty also a mutant clone? After getting rid of all the mutant clones, Tony walked over to the unconscious Black Widow, with a little surprise on his face. He has seen many top beauties, but there are also few with the appearance and figure like Black Widow. She is the Black Widow, an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., don't worry about her, the police are coming, we should retreat. Hearing the sound of a large number of police sirens approaching here, George quickly picked up the bodies of mutant clones and threw them all into the burning Research Institute building behind, and then used the descaling spell to remove all traces of blood. The purpose of doing this is to prevent some people from using the genes of these mutant clones to conduct other experiments. After dealing with all this, he returned to his normal size, spread his wings and took Wolverine and Iron Man directly back to the X-Fighter that had been hidden in the air. Not long after George and the other two left, a large number of Mexican police also drove police cars to the door of the Research Institute building that was burning wildly. "I'm sorry, ma'am, you are arrested. We suspect that you are related to the murder and arson case of the Leukemia Institute. Please cooperate with our investigation." After waking up, the Black Widow listened to the words of the Mexican police in front of her and looked at the handcuffs on her wrists. She couldn't help but show a confused look, and then a memory emerged in her mind. In her memory, she successfully sneaked into the Institute as Mrs. Natalie, was discovered while stealing the Institute's information, and then fought with the Institute's guards. In order to escape, she set fire to the Institute, but was accidentally knocked unconscious by the explosion. The memory was so real, but she, who had an extraordinary logical thinking, noticed a lot of unreasonable things. "Get rid of these police first." She leaned slightly to attract the police's attention with her proud career line, and knocked him down easily with an elbow. She took out the key from the policeman's pocket and unlocked the handcuffs. She kicked open the car door and jumped directly to the police car behind. The next step is to seize the car and run away, and then contact the headquarters to report the situation. On the other side, George and others also returned to Tony's mansion in Malibu in an X-Fighter and sent Tony back. After a battle, Tony's suit was running low on battery and was unable to fly back on his own. After sending Tony back, George and the others also returned to the mutant school. After returning, he immediately found the elderly Professor X and roughly explained the situation of the operation. Then he took out the younger version of Professor X's clone from his pocket. "What about Professor? Can it be transferred into this body?" "It can be transferred, but I don't really want to do it." Professor X sighed. "I was supposed to die, and now I'm alive just to do something to help these kids." When his memory was restored, he had the idea of wanting to die. He did not die because the children in the school still needed a qualified teacher. After hearing Professor X's words, before George started to persuade him, Wolverine had already stepped forward and grabbed Professor Charles. "Cheer me up. With a good body, you can teach your children better. With your current body, you feel sleepy after just a few classes. If you want to make up for it, living can make up for it better than dying. Death can only be an escape. You should know this better than me." Under Wolverine's persuasion, Professor X finally agreed to transfer his consciousness to the young clone. Chapter 95 Divine Sword Shadowless Curse. You are listening at novelfull.audio. That night, Professor, however, as George expected, his psychic ability has been greatly weakened due to the limitations of the clone, but because of his strong consciousness, he still has the ability of a third-level mutant. Professor, I need you to use the brainwave amplifier to find some people for me during your spare time when teaching the children. Who are you looking for? Feeling his youthful body, Professor, George explained. Find some kids with special abilities, and then we try to enroll them in our schools. He revealed his plan to change the mutant school into a super school. After Professor X listened, he thought for a long time before nodding heavily. You're right. Maybe when I proposed the concept of mutants, we were already separated from humans, and that's why there are so many things behind this. It's better to do this and remove the label of mutants, so that in the future children can truly integrate with humans. At this moment, he felt as if he had more responsibilities in his heart. Maybe his pattern should be bigger. Not only mutant children, but also children who have awakened superpowers actually face the same problems as mutant children. There are also adults with special abilities, and schools also need teachers. George thought for a moment and continued. Professor X hesitated for a moment. With my current ability, even if I have a brainwave amplifier, I can't search the entire world. The maximum range is probably not beyond New York, so the effect may not be as good as you think. It's okay, take your time and don't rush. George was not surprised. This step was originally a casual move and was not the focus of his work. Even if the professor only found one per year, it was not unacceptable. In the future, when he becomes stronger and the school becomes famous, he doesn't need to be approached by professors, and people will naturally come to him for help. After some exchanges with Professor X, George entered a state of focusing on learning magic and stopped caring about outside things. At the same time, Tony, who returned to the mansion, experienced the fun of fighting in a suit, improved his suit again, and started his own journey as a superhero. As long as there are terrorists anywhere in the news, he will appear in a steel suit and kill all the terrorists under the shining cameras of reporters. In just a few days, he became the world-famous Iron Man. The key is that he didn't listen to S.H.I.E.L.D., concealed his identity, and openly committed suicide at the press conference. Of course, these have no impact on George. He is still concentrating on learning and researching magic. Harry Potter World, Hogwarts. George was in a very good mood today, because Snape promised to officially teach several spells he invented, including the Shadowless curse that he wanted to learn the most. In Dean Slytherin's office in the basement, Snape looked at George standing in front of him and said, "George, you are the most talented student I have ever encountered in my teaching career. He is very good and I am very satisfied." As the head of Slytherin, he did not hesitate to praise George, the star of Slytherin. As a Slytherin student, George also replied in a very Slytherin way. "Thank you, Dean, for your praise. I will continue to excel, lead Slytherin to become the leader of the four houses, and bring glory to Slytherin." Modesty seemed false at this time, and because of his understanding of Snape during this period, Snape should have liked what he just said more. Sure enough, after hearing George's answer, Snape had a rare smile on his face, although his smile was a bit uglier than crying. "Yes, the glory always belongs to Slytherin, and I believe in you too. So I called you here this time to teach you some of my own magic spells. I wonder if you are willing to learn them." Dumbledore once talked to him and said that he should pay more attention to George. The child George was somewhat similar to Voldemort in some aspects, and he should be guided more to avoid going astray. He had actually been aware of Dumbledore's concerns for a long time. He couldn't see through some of George's cleverness, but he felt that there was nothing wrong with that. Slytherin should be like this. Should he act like those reckless people in Gryffindor? As for George being like Voldemort, there was indeed some resemblance, but he felt that George was essentially more like him than like Voldemort. George's excellence, politeness, being loved by all teachers and students, and his thirst for magical knowledge are all very similar to Voldemort, and his life experience is equally tragic. However, as Voldemort's most trusted subordinate, he knew that Voldemort's thirst for magical knowledge did not come from his heart, but had a strong purpose and extreme thoughts. But George was different in this regard. After many remedial lessons, he felt that George's pursuit of magic was the same as when he was in school, more pure. That is, he purely wanted to learn magic and explore magic. More importantly, he found that George did not have any extreme ideas about his birth, but was instead very open-minded. Of course, people are good at disguise. Maybe George's disguise is hard for him to see through. As a natural legilimens, George can't detect anything even if he uses legilimens. Besides, it's not easy for him to use legilimens on his best student, so it is precisely because of this that he wants to teach George his own original magic, teach and guide George well, so that George will not go astray. Yes, very much. Hearing Snape's words, George nodded quickly without thinking, only a fool would not want to. The Sharp Edge spell is one of the spells he wants to learn the most. It is silent when attacking, and it is basically difficult to dodge. The key is that it has the characteristics of a curse. Normal healing spells can't heal at all. A specific counterspell must be used to remove the curse and heal. If he can learn it, it can be said that it is his strongest offensive magic except for the giant magic. He estimated that even if Wolverine was hit by his Sharp Edge spell, he couldn't rely on the self-healing factor to recover from the wound. There is also the Fuchsia spell, which is different from the levitation spell and the relocation spell. If a normal wizard is hit by a spell with similar effects such as the levitation spell and the relocation spell, he can use the universal debunking spell to directly remove the spell for himself. However, if you are hit by the Fuchsia spell, unless you know the counterspell, you cannot use the universal debunking spell to remove it, and you need to wait until the magic effect ends before you can land again. Chapter 96 Who is the successor to the secret room? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Okay, the school is not peaceful recently. I hope that after you learn these spells, you can use them to protect yourself and your Slytherin classmates. Snape looked serious, but George was a little confused. We are all Slytherin. Halfway through his words, he immediately stopped and changed his words with a smile. I know, I will protect my classmates and friends. Slytherin is either pure blood or mixed blood. It stands to reason that opening the Chamber of Secrets will not be dangerous to Slytherin's wizards, so Snape's words must have another meaning. After thinking about it for a moment, George roughly guessed the reason. Quite simply, Snape hoped that after George learned these spells, if he happened to encounter young wizards from other colleges, especially Harry, who was in danger, he could take action to play some role. Snape hated Harry very much because Harry looked like James, who bullied him back then, but he must protect Harry's safety, because Harry is his favorite Lily's child. Dumbledore would not tell Snape everything. In Snape's view, the Chamber of Secrets was open at this time, and the monsters inside were very dangerous to the Muggle-born wizard and Harry. This is why he assists the disgusting Lockhart and teaches the young wizards how to duel. Although Snape is not as impartial as McGonagall, as a teacher at Hogwarts, he also has the heart to protect all students, including Muggle-born wizards. It's just that Snape would definitely not say anything like this. Snape knew that he, Harry, and Hermione were friends and often studied together. If he was in danger, he could learn the Shadowless curse and be of great help. As the days passed, George spent most of his free time learning the Divine Edge Shadowless curse and the Upside-Down Golden Bell curse. Hogwarts has been quiet during this period, and there have been no more petrified incidents, because Voldemort's diary is now in Harry's hands. It was only on Sunday of the second week of school that the Harry trio brought the diary to find George, who was reading in the library again, and told him about the results of their communication with the diary last week. So you suspect that Hagrid is the descendant of the Chamber of Secrets and released the monsters inside? George asked somewhat amusedly. We have long known that Hagrid was expelled from school, and the attacks must have stopped since Hagrid was kicked out. Otherwise, Riddle would not have won the award. Harry's face was full of distress, and he was most reluctant to believe this answer, but the evidence pointed to Hagrid. Hagrid has always had a soft spot for all kinds of huge monsters. Last year, he even tried to feed the fire dragon in the cabin, as well as the three-headed Lu Wei who guarded the magic stone. We thought maybe he just didn't want the monster to be locked up all the time, and didn't expect the monster to kill people. Ron added. George looked at Hermione, who lowered her head. We actually don't believe it either, so I'm here to ask your opinion. I know that you often go to the cabin to find Hagrid. Well, to be honest with you, it can't be Hagrid. George said affirmatively. The three little ones' eyes immediately lit up when they heard this. Why? Because first of all, Slytherin is a wizard who values blood very much, and it is impossible for him to find a wizard with giant blood as his successor. Secondly, since Dumbledore trusts Hagrid, it means that Dumbledore does not believe that Hagrid did what happened back then. Finally, the diary cannot be what it says. Who knows if the scene he created is true? Maybe he himself is the heir, and he deliberately framed Hagrid. Who knows? George suggested unhurriedly. For this kind of thing, I suggest you ask Hagrid in person. Or if you are too embarrassed to ask, I can ask it for you. Although he hoped that the Chamber of Secrets incident would become a big deal, he did not want Hagrid to be implicated like in the original work and go to Azkaban for a few months. In a place like Azkaban, where Dementors sucked away emotions every day, the cruelty was comparable to being constantly tortured by the Cruciatus curse. Hagrid is a good person with a simple mind. He has taught him a lot of useful knowledge in the past 6 months. He prefers people like Hagrid to Dumbledore. Anyway, even if Hagrid doesn't go to Azkaban and the matter in the Chamber of Secrets doesn't end, Dumbledore will still be asked to leave the school for a period of time sooner or later. There is no conflict. Moreover, helping Hagrid reverse the case can also reduce Dumbledore's wariness towards him and build a good impression on him. Yes, George, you are right. If Hagrid was really the heir of the Chamber of Secrets, Dumbledore would not trust him so much. After hearing George's explanation, Harry immediately felt better. You know, ever since the evidence pointed to Hagrid being the successor with a high probability of opening the secret room door, he has been in a bad mood. We really shouldn't just pretend not to know, otherwise if another attack occurs, Hagrid may be arrested as a criminal again. George, let's ask Hagrid together. Hermione also felt that what George said made sense. Ron scratched his head. Well, I hope it was a nice visit. He was already beginning to imagine how awkward it would be when they asked Hagrid if he had let any wild, furry thing out of the castle recently, so that afternoon, they came to Hagrid's hut. Why didn't you tell me in advance so that I could make rock cakes for you? Hagrid, who was dealing with the mole at the school gate, was very happy to see George and the other 4 appear. Harry and the other 2 looked at Hagrid and said nervously. Hagrid, we came here to ask you questions this time. George saw that the 3 of them had been asking you for a long time but couldn't get the questions out, so he simply asked himself. It's like this, Hagrid, we learned that you were expelled from school because of the monster that opened the Chamber of Secrets and caused Myrtle to be killed. I want to ask you what happened. So it's this incident. Hagrid sighed after hearing this. I didn't want to mention this matter again, but now that the Chamber of Secrets has been opened again and 2 attacks have been launched, I think I still have to talk to you about it. I didn't open the Chamber of Secrets that year and was wrongly accused. So next, Hagrid told the whole story of the incident. It turns out that in 1943, when Hagrid was still a student, he once obtained an Acromantula egg from a traveler. He secretly hatched it and raised it in Hogwarts, naming it Aragog. Later, the Chamber of Secrets was opened, and a student named Myrtle was killed. Except for Dumbledore, everyone believed that it was Hagrid who opened the Chamber of Secrets and released the Acromantula to attack Myrtle. With Dumbledore's strong protection, he was not sent to Azkaban, but was expelled as a gamekeeper. Chapter 97, Passing Through a Sea of Flowers Without Getting a Single Leaf on You. You are listening at novelfull.audio. So, the Acromantula named Aragog was later sent to the Forbidden Forest by you? Harry demanded. Hagrid nodded. Yes, I also found him a wife named Mozag in the Forbidden Forest. They now have hundreds of descendants. As far as I know, magical animals like the Acromantula do not have the ability to petrify people. At this time, George added another sentence. Hermione thought for a moment and said. Since Aragog is in the Forbidden Forest, the monster that comes out of the secret room to attack the students now is not the Acromantula, and that attack back then couldn't have been Hagrid. Unfortunately, other than us, no one else will believe this. From the perspective of outsiders, the Acromantula in the Forbidden Forest may not be the one released by Hagrid from the secret chamber. There is no evidence to prove it. After leaving Hagrid's hut and confirming that Hagrid was not the man from the Chamber of Secrets, the 3 Harrys' emotions were obviously much higher. Since Hagrid was wronged, can we find a way to help him? On the way back to the castle, Harry suddenly suggested. Hermione seemed to have similar thoughts. As long as we find a way to lure out the monster and prove that it is not an Acromantula, we can resolve the misunderstanding and restore Hagrid's innocence. But the monster seems to have never appeared recently. Could it be over? Ron said worriedly, when George heard the new content discussed by the 3 people. he couldn't help but sigh secretly in his heart. As expected of you, that there are no students in the school who are not afraid of encountering the monster in the secret room. You three are actually thinking about how to lure the monster out. Actually, although George lamented the recklessness of the three of them, he had similar thoughts. However, he is different, he is not reckless, he has his own considerations. He knew that the monster in the secret room was a basilisk, and he also knew that the basilisk had a fatal weakness. The basilisk is the most terrifying magical animal hatched by ancient wizards who placed eggs in the bellies of toads and used black magic. Not only does it have deadly fangs and a huge body, but its eyes also have terrifying magic that can glare at anyone to death and turn it into stone even if it reflects light. However, this powerful magical creature also has a natural enemy, which is a rooster. As long as it encounters a rooster crowing, the basilisk will basically lose any attack power, and may even be frightened to death on the spot. That's why Voldemort controlled Ginny and secretly killed all the big roosters Hagrid had raised. George returned to Diagon Alley this Christmas. In addition to learning how to make wands, he actually secretly bought several big roosters and kept them in boxes he made with the invisible stretching charm. The purpose is to use it to deal with the basilisk when your life is in danger. Of course, if you just want to help Hagrid reverse the case, you don't have to actually kill the basilisk. You just need to let everyone know that the monster in the secret room is a basilisk, and he won't use the big cock trick unless absolutely necessary, because neither the box of the seamless stretching spell nor the big rooster raised in advance is difficult to explain, but that's a story for another day. The diary is still in Harry's hands. It will take some time until Ginny finds out that she stole the diary back and the basilisk will appear again. The most important thing for him now is to learn the Divine Edge Shadowless curse. Time flies, and soon it's February 14th, which is Valentine's Day. As soon as he arrived at the auditorium in the morning, he found that the decoration of the auditorium had changed. The four walls were covered with large dazzling pink flowers, and there were many heart-shaped confetti that kept changing from light blue to falling from the ceiling. It looks pretty good. No wonder witches like it so much. Seeing the little witches entering the great hall with their eyes filled with love, George couldn't help but admire Lockhart's ability in this area. At the same time, he also lamented that whether they are ordinary people or wizards, as long as they are women, most of them cannot resist these more romantic scenes. On the other hand, the expressions of some wizards were not so good. After Harry and Ron entered the Great Hall, they saw Lockhart in bright pink robes with disgusted expressions and felt like they were going to vomit. As for the professors at the long table on the high platform, they seemed to be in a bad mood at the moment, especially Professor Snape, as if someone had just poured him a large glass of bone spirit. Once most of the young wizards had arrived in the Great Hall, Lockhart began his special Valentine's Day morale-boosting plan, that is to use 12 dwarfs with golden wings, carrying harps on their backs, pretending to be the gods of love, to send Valentine's Day cards to the little wizards at school. If the little wizard has someone he likes, just write a Valentine's Day greeting card and give it to the dwarves, and they will help deliver it to that person. If necessary, they can also help read it out to express their love. Lockhart even encouraged everyone to ask Snape for advice on how to refine love potions and Flitwick for psychedelic magic. Regarding these, George just watched the fun and didn't care. After all, to him, his avatar is still a child, and most of the students in the school are underage, so he has no plans to fall in love or anything like that. Falling in love takes time, and now he prefers to spend his time learning magic. There is no time to fall in love, but the opportunity to learn magic is not easy to come by. Besides, he takes things like falling in love lightly. Experience in his previous life told him that love is not a necessity. If the body needs it, he can find someone to satisfy it. After that, everyone goes their separate ways and is just a passerby in their own lives. Since he came into contact with magic, he felt that magic was what he really wanted to pursue, and everything else had to stand aside. Passing through the flowers without getting a single leaf on him, this is his attitude towards the opposite sex. God of Swords. In the Forbidden Forest, George waved his wand, and a transparent sharp blade flew out of his wand, successfully hitting the fleeing mole in front of him, causing it to tear its skin and flesh on the spot. Paige, who was flying above George's head, immediately swooped over, caught the mole in his mouth, and swallowed it in one bite. There was no class in the morning. After breakfast, George quietly came to the Forbidden Forest to practice the God of Swords and Shadows. and the objects of his practice were various small animals in the forbidden forest, just like the fire spell is a small flame if it is not used well, and it can even turn into a sea of fire if it is used well. The god of swords and shadows is the same. Getting started is like George now, only able to shoot one at a time. And the power is average. Once you really master it, you can shoot more than one at a time, and the size of each transparent blade will be more than that. As long as you study it deeply enough, it is not impossible to split a person in half with one blade, so even if you get started, you must study and practice frequently and not slack off. I didn't go to the Great Hall for lunch at noon, but ate rock cakes in Hagrid's room. To be honest, if his physique was not much better than that of a normal wizard and his teeth were not strong, he really couldn't bite the rock cake. But in terms of taste, it's really good. Hagrid is not exaggerating. Chapter 98: The Birth of the Super Wand. You are listening at NovelFull.audio. After eating rock cakes at Hagrid's, he returned to the castle, as he had classes to attend in the afternoon. However, as soon as he walked into the castle hall, he was caught by a dwarf, who stuffed a bunch of Valentine's Day cards into George's hands, then picked up a harp and began to play. This also attracted many little wizards who came to watch the fun, and of course there were also little witches who wrote cards. George did not leave quickly, because that would only make the dwarfs chase him and play, which would make the scene more embarrassing. He just held a bunch of Valentine's Day cards, listened to the dwarf's performance generously, and then smiled. "Thank you for your love for me. I will read every card carefully after I go back." Putting away the cards, he walked out of the crowd calmly, but during this period, he actually found a 7th grade witch in the crowd. The look in her eyes seemed to be a little wrong when she looked at him, which made him a little surprised. Could it be that she also had a copy of my card? In total, he received at least more than 30 Valentine's Day cards. Even if all the little witches in the 1st grade wrote him cards, there should not be so many, so there must be witches from other grades who also wrote him a card. If it's for the 2nd and 3rd graders, it's understandable, but for the 7th graders, aren't you going too far? There's a 6 or 7 year difference. This reminded him of the peanut butter teacher in Shameless. Well, it seems to have a different flavor. On the way to the classroom, he also saw Harry being entangled by the dwarfs, and Malfoy snatching the Valentine's Day card from Harry and reading it in public. In the end, Harry used the disarmament spell to successfully take back the Valentine's Day card written to himself. The disarmament spell is called the disarmament spell, but it is not only for disarming weapons. Its main function is to forcibly knock out the things in the enemy's hands, and also knock out the enemy, so no matter whether you have a wand, a sword, a rocket launcher, a piece of toilet paper, or a cup of milk tea, you will be bounced out. Ignoring this little farce, George came to the Transfiguration classroom. Both classes in the afternoon were Transfiguration classes. Today we are going to talk about GAMP's basic Transfiguration law. Professor McGonagall was teaching with a serious face, and George was also taking notes seriously. GAMP's basic Transfiguration law is the basic law that must be followed by Transfiguration in this world, and it is a law that must be known if you want to learn Transfiguration. Generally speaking, Transfiguration cannot create food out of thin air, and cannot maintain the transformation permanently. For example, if you turn a table into a pig, it will be restored once the magic power dissipates. Transfiguration cannot transform magical items, cannot change the quantity, and cannot create something out of nothing. How can it be so strong? George, who was listening to the class and taking notes seriously, suddenly stopped writing, with a surprised expression on his face. It turned out that the clone in the fairy tale world had a big harvest at this time. God of Swords. George stood in the woods behind the guild, took out the latest wand in his hand, and cast a God of Swords. A 1 meter long transparent blade burst out from the wand, directly cutting off a large tree in front of it, and the power was more than 10 times stronger than the God of Swords he used in the Harry Potter world. This scene shocked him. Natsu's hair is so strong, that it turned out that he had used his own cat hair as the core to make a wand, but the effect was only slightly stronger than his original wand in the main world. Later, he bought the hair of a magical creature with good strength from other members of the guild and made another wand. This time the effect of the wand was obviously much better, even better than the wand in the Harry Potter world. In the past 2 days, Natsu, Lucy, and Happy finally completed the task of finding the book and returned to the guild. He quietly pulled out a hair from Natsu to make the 3rd wand. The result was the scene just now. The bonus of the new wand increased his magic power by more than 10 times. It was simply a super wand. He felt that even the old wand in the Harry Potter world should not have such a good effect. The wands of the 3 wands were made of the same material he bought from the magic shop. The difference was the core. Natsu's hair was obviously much better than the previous magical creature. Does a dragon slayer really have a physique close to that of a dragon? But even if it is a dragon, this effect is too good. Looking at the new wand in his hand, George couldn't help but sigh again. It seems that in the future, I will also find a way to become a dragon slayer. If he can become a dragon slayer, then his innate abilities will be shared, and his original body and other clones will also have the same dragon slayer physique, so he can pull out his hair to make a super wand. Even if there is a new world and a new clone in the future, there is no need to worry about the problem of the wand. The key is that because he often stays in the guild and doesn't have to do tasks, he has also heard a lot of useful information, including how to become a dragon slayer. Not all dragon slayers have to be like Natsu, who was raised by a real dragon and taught magic since childhood to become a dragon slayer, like the grandson of President Makarov. One of the S-class wizards of the guild, Laxus Doria, is different from Natsu. According to Mira Jane, Laxus had been weak and sickly since childhood, and his father found a Thunder Dragon Slayer crystal and implanted it into his body, thus making him a powerful Thunder Dragon Slayer wizard. So, as long as he can find a dragon-slaying crystal made from the heart of a dragon and implant it in his body, he can also become a dragon-slaying wizard, or a dragon-slaying magic cat. After all, his body in this world is a cat. The only trouble is that the dragon-slaying crystal is extremely rare and cannot be bought on the market. It is a rare treasure that is worth a lot of money and cannot be found without a certain amount of luck. For a cat like him who stays in the guild every day, it is even more impossible to encounter it, so if he wants to find the dragon-slaying crystal, he will have to take time to go out in the future. Forget it, let's talk about it later. I'd better find a better wand body when I have time. The dragon-slaying crystal is hard to come by, but a better wand body can be found. Now he clearly feels that the wand body of his super magic wand is not worthy of the wand core. If he finds a better wand body, the power of the magic wand may be even better. Flames are blazing. Waving the magic wand, George experimented with the second magic again. The fire spell that could only spray out flames for ignition turned into a huge pillar of fire. After that, he experimented with dozens of magics, and he found that compared with other magics, this wand seemed to have better effects on fire, curses and black magic, while other magics were weaker. For example, the power of cursed black magic and fire spells such as the God's Edge Shadowless curse was increased by about 12 times, while the effect of the Traceless extension spell and the repair spell was only 9 times. Natsu was a fire dragon slayer wizard, and he understood that the fire system had additional bonuses, but it was strange that the curse and black magic bonuses were so high. But think about it, it seems so important. Anyway, it won't do him any harm. Chapter 99, Remarks on the Launch. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Just received the notice of the book being put on the shelves. It will be put on the shelves at 12 noon tomorrow. This is already the 7th book I have written. I won't say much about other things, and I won't sell my misery. I will just talk about the burst of updates after the book is put on the shelf. 5 updates will be put on the shelves tomorrow, and then I will ask for the first order. The first order is related to the recommendation after the book is put on the shelves. I hope that all readers can at least support the first order. Begging. Currently, there are 2,000 effective follow-up readings. If the first order exceeds 1,500, I promise to maintain 5 more updates a day for every 100 first orders, and there is no upper limit. As long as there are many first orders, I will continue to burst the update to fulfill the promise even if I stay up all night. If there are rewards, I will also add more updates. Of course, this is not forced. After the burst of updates, I will try my best to keep 3 updates every day. That's about it. Finally, first order, begging for the first order on the shelves tomorrow. I wish all readers who read the book happiness and health this year, a lot of money, and all their wishes come true. Chapter 100 The Fairy Queen appears, First Order Request. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Repair it as before. In the guild hall, George waved his wand, and the damage caused by the fight between the guild wizards was repaired all at once. "George, your magic is getting better and better." Mira Jane praised George while wiping the cup at the bar. She remembered that when George first came, he had to cast magic more than 10 times in a row to repair the hull, but now he just sat at the bar and waved his hand to get it done. "It's mainly because the president taught well. By the way, why didn't I see the president today?" George took a sip of beer glass that was almost as tall as himself. "During this period, his repair spell has indeed improved a lot, but it's not so exaggerated. The reason for this effect is mainly because of this super wand made of Natsu's hair as the wand core." Mira Jane smiled and replied. "President, he went to attend the routine meeting." "Routine meeting? It seems that I have to wait a few days before I come back. I was going to ask him some questions about light magic today." George showed a look of regret. He had learned about the routine meetings, which were meetings where the presidents of regular wizard guilds in various parts of the kingdom gathered regularly to discuss the policies of the council. The kingdom of Fiori was a permanent neutral country with a population of 17 million in this world, and its top leadership was divided into 2 parts. The first part was the Fiori royal family, which was responsible for maintaining order among ordinary people, and the second part was the Magic Council, which was responsible for maintaining order in the magic world. The top leadership of the Magic Council consisted of a speaker and 9 members, and their main work included monitoring the actions of various wizard guilds, punishing illegal guilds, and hunting down dark guilds. Usually, the council would be held regularly, also in case of emergencies, at the council headquarters. Discuss the recent important developments in the magic world and decide on the course of action. Then these action plans would be conveyed to the presidents of various wizard guilds, and the presidents of various wizard guilds would gather together to discuss how to implement them. Generally, such a gathering would take at least 3 to 5 days. "It's not good, AI. Urza, she's back." Just when George finished his beer and was about to go to the basement library to read, the door of the guild was suddenly pushed open, and the possession wizard Rocky announced solemnly. In an instant, the whole guild was so quiet that you could hear a pin drop. Except for Mira Jane, who was smiling, and Lucy, who was confused, the faces of all the wizards were very stiff, including Natsu, who was usually fearless, and his nemesis Gray. "Urza, the Queen of Fairies, is one of the S-class wizards of the guild." George also stopped with interest at this time. Except for the president Makarov, he has never seen an S-class wizard since he joined the guild. Today he can finally see what it looks like. It seems that everyone is afraid of her. "Is she difficult to get along with?" George returned to the bar. Mira Jane shook her head gently. "That's not the case. Urza is a very nice person. She just cares about everyone and works seriously. But I heard from Natsu that Urza can kick 2 mountains away with 1 kick." At this time, Lucy, who heard George and Mira Jane chatting, also came over. "That's not the case. Because Natsu once challenged Urza and was beaten half to death, so his words may be a bit exaggerated." Mira Jane covered her mouth and chuckled. "Even Natsu was beaten half to death." Lucy showed a surprised expression on her face. It was because they had done the task together that she knew how powerful Natsu was. The Uncle Makeo, who was good at using purple flame fire magic, also gossiped after hearing this. Once Gray was wandering around the guild without clothes, and was beaten half to death by Urza when he saw him. And when Rocky joined the guild and wanted to pursue Urza, he was also beaten half to death. Kana put down the barrel and added with gloating. George looked at the guild gate and became more and more interested in the fairy queen. "I heard that Urza used the dress-up magic." Natsu, Gray and Rocky are currently recognized as the strongest wizards below S level in Fairy Tail, but they seem to be no match for Urza. As far as he knows, Urza's dress-up magic is not that powerful. He had encountered similar wizards before joining Fairy Tail. It is a dress-up magic, but not an ordinary dress-up magic. It is a dress-up knight. It can not only summon magic weapons, but also magic armor, but even if she doesn't wear magic armor, Urza's strength is not comparable to that of an ordinary dress-up magician. She passed the S-level magician assessment when she was 15 years old. Mira Jane smiled and said to George. "Magic is not strong or weak, but wizards are strong or weak. Find the magic that suits you best. As long as you work hard, you will definitely become a powerful wizard. Lucy and others beside him looked encouraged when they heard Mirajane's words, but George didn't think so. That's true. Even with the simplest magic, a powerful wizard can defeat those wizards who are weak but have strong magic, but if the wizards are equally powerful, the one with stronger magic will definitely be more powerful. For example, if two wizards with the same magic power use Fire Dragon Slayer magic and the other uses ordinary fire magic, there is no way they can fight. Ordinary fire magic has no advantage over Fire Dragon Slayer magic. Even Natsu, who uses Fire Dragon Slayer magic, can swallow all the ordinary fire magic in one gulp to increase the power of his Dragon Slayer magic. Mirajane said this to encourage everyone, especially to encourage wizards like George who she thinks have no offensive power, but George is a very rational and realistic person. He has great ambitions. As long as he has time, he will not only focus on one or two kinds of magic, but will learn all kinds of magic, including lost magic, super magic, celestial magic, etc. His concept is very simple. As a magician, the more magic he masters, the closer he can get to the true meaning of magic. Look at President Makarov. In addition to being proficient in giant magic and light magic, he also knows a lot of fire, ice and other magic, and because he is not in one world, but in multiple worlds, and there may even be other worlds in the future, it is more suitable for him to take the almighty magic development route. Boom! 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 Heavy footsteps sounded outside the guild, as if a giant was slowly approaching, and the wizards in the hall all swallowed their saliva. Soon, a beautiful wizard with long red hair, wearing silver armor on her upper body, a blue short skirt and black boots on her lower body, appeared at the door of the guild. However, this female wizard did not appear with empty hands, but was holding up an oversized horn with one hand. George estimated that the horn weighed at least 2 tons, which is equivalent to holding a Hummer with one hand in modern times.